also our virtual online participants. And we're going to start with just a few general pieces of business. So this is the City and County of Honolulu Source Reduction Working Group meeting number 5. This will be the final meeting for this working group. And today our meeting will be done both in person and online. I'm going to be the main facilitator. My name is Lindsay Lopez, and I'm joined here by my great colleagues, John Padre and Emily Stone, that are in the room here. And also we have Eunice Chan, who is our virtual facilitator. And so both Eunice or I can try to help with any issues that come up. And we're really looking forward to everyone's participation. So the date is May 10th. 2024. Please put your phones and microphones on silent. For those in the room, restrooms are located down the hall and to the right. And we are recording the meeting for note-keeping purposes. And so I call this meeting to order. Emily, could you please do roll call?
Yes. Amy Cook.
Here.
Quinn Vinton.
Here.
Alan Evans. Tina Yamaki. Lauren Zerbel. Amy Breaker.
Here.
Lene Ichinosubo. Here. Mike O'Keefe.
Here.
Nicole Chatterson.
Here.
That's all.
We have a quorum. Mahalo for attending today. Could you let the record show that we have, Eunice, would you mind reading out the virtual attendance, please?
Our virtual attendees are Amy Brinker, Haley Cook, Nicole Chatterson, and Quinn Vittum.
And our in-person participants are Michael Keefe and Lene Ichikosubo. All right, well, it is a pleasure to be back in person for the final Source Reduction Working Group meeting, and it's been a real honor to be part of this whole process. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to discuss and help the future of source reduction for the island. And I look forward to seeing all the great activities and progress that you make in the future. So let's take a quick look at our agenda. It is relatively few items on the agenda, but we will next after this be looking through meeting number 4 minutes and seeing if anyone has comments. We will then move to discussion of the Source Reduction Working Group final report. And in that part, we're looking to hear, go through each of the comments and markups. And the goal of that is to all come to some sort of resolution on path forward so that in the next agenda item, we can actually have approval of that report, which is the goal. And then the meeting will be adjourned. All right. So we will now move to the agenda item for approval of minutes from the Source Reduction Working Group meeting number 4. This is both an informational and an actional element. And the meeting minutes were posted in the meeting packet for meeting number 5 at the project website. In this agenda item, we'd like to explore if changes are necessary or if we can approve the minutes. I'd like to move to public testimony. Is there anyone that has been registered in the room or virtually that would like to speak about the meeting number 4 minutes?
Hello.
But no one has registered.
No one has registered.
Yeah.
We are.
Hello,
Hello, welcome.
this is. Our people. It's like you guys come in and say, oh,
One second.
Mr. Fudge. Sure. Good. Something inside couple. To be second,
Would you like to?
also be the time.
Yeah.
I have a problem, I have a trouble.
Okay, before we jump into this public testimony, we are gonna invite our speaker to have a few words.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be you.
Yeah, okay, but what am I doing?
So their microphone is right here, so you can come up and just introduce yourself for those who are unfamiliar with who you are and say a few words, but welcome.
Where's the camera?
Oh,
Do you have to pick it up? Okay. Yeah, well, this is kind of interesting. Okay, well, on behalf of the city and county of Honolulu, okay, first of all, my name is Chris Hirota. I'm the acting chief of the refuse division with the Department of Environmental Services. And I just really wanted to thank everybody, the participants, also the people who provided commentary, and of course our consultant, Jacobs, for a job well done with this source reduction workshop. And we're hoping that from this we call it exercise, we come up with a lot of solutions for reducing the island's waste and helping to keep Oahu a cleaner, safer place. And that's all. I mean, unless we have any other things we want to go over. Okay, well, again, thank you and have a good day.
Lindsay, can't hear you. Still no sound. Okay, it's back.
you can hear it now?
Yeah.
Were you able to hear the last speech?
Yes, it was after the microphone was set down.
Okay,
So sorry about that.
no worries. Thanks so much.
Discharging transmission.
All right, Eunice, is there a video conference that would like to speak?
If you would like to speak, you can raise your hand. There's a raise hand button, or you can let me know in the chat.
And so members, you had the chance to take a look at meeting number 4 minutes, and I did not receive any comments back from you, but I just want to make sure that you don't have any comments that we need to make changes, and then we can finalize those minutes. Anyone have any comments through? No?
No.
Anyone online have any comments?
I don't see any raised hands or anything in the chat.
Okay, then can I get a member to make a motion for approval of meeting 4 minutes?
I move to approve meeting 4 minutes. This
Can I
is
get a
Nicole.
second?
Second that, Quinn.
All members in favor of approving the minutes from meeting number 4, say aye. And if you're online, please raise your hand with the use your hand. Raise your hand.
Aye.
So online, the raised hands are Nicole, Amy, Haley, and Quinn.
And in the room, Mike said aye, and Lene both said aye. Right, thank you all. That brings us to the next section, and this is discussion of the source reduction working group final report. I'm going to be moving out of the slides, and we're going to start actually looking at the actual report. But following completion of meeting number 4, the draft final report was prepared and posted for comment on the source reduction working group website. Each source reduction working group member reviewed the report and provided feedback. So thank you all for your time and participation in this review process. Some members had no comments. We also received individual letters from 3 of the members to be included within the report. And so today, the goal is to run through the report section by section. I have all the sections listed here. Review the comments that were received, discuss and determine a path forward for each comment. And the hope again is trying to come to some resolution so that we can approve the final report at the end in the next agenda item. So I'm going to pick the report up. And again, we're going to go section by section. This is the Word document, so it doesn't have the fancy, here, I'll show you just a second. The actual draft cover, if you remember, looks like this. And we did note that we used an older version of the scale.
Are you sharing screen?
I should be, am I not? Okay, hold on.
And just a, just a quick question, the current version that you're going to share today is that going to be version 4? So it's not linked on the website as of yet, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I got dropped, so I wasn't sharing. 1 second. I think it's trying to connect.
Is there also a way to just to share a link to this version 4, just in case there's like delays or the lag in the way the screen share goes as we move along here?
Possibly, yes, but I'm gonna have to get it to everybody and I don't have. Hold on, I'm gonna try the other one and see if that works. We've got a couple.
Cool. Lindsay, Lauren just joined.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Lauren, welcome.
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. We are on the 4th agenda item, having just a tiny bit of internet connectivity problems here, but I hope to be back on track very soon.
Lindsay, would you like me to share screen too? I have version 4 up.
You know, Eunice, I've made a few more changes, so hopefully
Okay.
not, but let me send this to you right away, that way. Okay. Let's try this again. Are you seeing my screen yet?
Yes.
Looks like, okay. All right, so starting over, apologies for that. This is the cover that you all saw, and the screen, the seal has an old seal. So we're going to be replacing that with the latest one, which is very similar, but it has Green Mountains in it. But other than that, I think that we are keeping the rest of this cover page as is. And let's go back over to the Word file. I just need to do some updating of the titles because of this is the final, it's no longer the draft final. The version numbers. Pretty easy stuff. All right, so then the next piece here, there were a number of comments that made some suggestions for different titles to some of the actions. And so what I recommend is that we just agree to come back to this section. I will at the end of the meeting and document the final names that we decide upon as we get to the main body of the report. It's probably an easier time to talk about this. This is just the executive summary portion, but we'll make sure that all of the action titles that got updated match the list that's in the executive summary. And then we will make sure that it gets carried out throughout. So that's one thing that to show on this. And then there was one comment here about, for the permitting process for C&D material management reuse, what kind of permits does this refer to? And, when we were talking about this kind of streamlining the permitting process, it was the process for C&D and concrete waste recyclers. And there was a barrier for, setting up new facilities that would do this kind of work. And so it was streamlining that permitting process to try to help make it easier for a new C&D recycler or concrete recycler to get within the market. So that was the concept behind that. So if we need to do some further explanation of that later on, when we actually talk about that action, we can circle back to that. I just wanted to answer that question. And again, we'll sort out what the final title is as we proceed. So I don't see any additional comments. The acknowledgements page. The contents didn't have any changes, but it'll be updated so that all of the numbers are correct once we make the final changes. Any other changes that just change the titles will be updated as well. Moving along, I didn't see any changes to the acronyms and abbreviations, so we'll leave those as it is. And the introduction, there were no changes to the introduction itself. Under background, we did have a couple of different comments related to some of the topics. So there was these red line changes here that are shown on the screen. So it's the new text for the legislative level would be Honolulu City Council passed Bill 40, now revised ordinance of Honolulu ROH Chapter 34, Article 13. The disposable food waste ordinance, which promotes source reduction, prohibiting the sale and provision of disposable plastic and polystyrene food and serviceware for prepared foods. Does anyone have any issue with this change? If you do, I do see Amy's hand. Is that from a previous hand, or did you have a question?
That was a previous one, but I do wonder if we can link to the HRS statutes whenever these come up, or the bill, you know,
Yes.
or in this case, revised ordinance, but throughout the document.
Okay, there, and most of them that there should have been, but that is something we will make sure that is linked to it.
Nicole has her hand up.
Nicole?
Yeah, think it sounds great. I'm just wondering what the spirit of the change is. Is it intended to more directly align with what the statute language says? Or what was the reason for changing it?
So this was one of the markups that I received. I don't have the context here, but I think it was to try to be more representative of what the statute says, perhaps.
Yeah, Lindsay, I can jump in. This was for me. It was just to make it accurate for what the,
Cool.
yeah, the reference is.
Awesome. That was what I was hoping to hear. So sounds great.
Thank you. So then there was two other comments on this page, and I'm going to read them. They're a little long, but that way everyone can hear. So this was in related to just this legislative level idea. And again, these are examples of source reduction at various levels, and they were ways source reduction can happen. So the manufacturing level, legislative level, industrial or business level, and consumer level. And so this first comment says, note that the unintended consequence is that many restaurants closed down as the replacement for the disposable foodware was at time double and triple the price of polystyrene ware and there were limited vendors. Ordering online is not always an option for business as it's not a steady or reliable source. Businesses could not afford the added expense. Businesses respond to the wants of the customers that patronize their establishments, all while operating on a very thin profit margin. They look for cost-effective food containers and utensils that ensure that products are durable enough to protect people from the spills and burns, as well as keep food protected and fresh longer by sustaining appropriate temperatures. We also look for cost-effective products that protect items from breakage and present appetizing products. So I have a proposed response that this portion is intended to just provide examples of different source reduction pathways. And want to see if you all feel like we need to add additional context. We could add a footnote. One potential footnote would be that the retail merchants of Hawaii would like to raise concern for unintended consequences of actions that raise costs to businesses. How are people feeling about whether a change is needed, perhaps a footnote, perhaps no change? Any thoughts?
I think for what this section is intending to do, it doesn't seem necessary to include a footnote. And
Yeah.
if there was major concern for stating that perspective, it might fit better elsewhere where we dig into the topic a little more. It could also work well in a personal statement from an organization as well.
And that is a really good point too, is that they did send in a personal statement, and I do think that their viewpoints are nicely represented in that letter. So that's another option too. Is there anyone opposed to not making an additional change?
The other option you mentioned was to put it in the body of the report. Is there a space that you had in mind?
So none of the actions that we proposed were talking about this bill because it's something that's already happened, but perhaps when we are talking about, some of the changes to the food packaging, it could be in perhaps the introduction portion of that section. It could be in the portions that are talking about impacts to each of the actions potentially. Cool.
I would then wonder how far down the rabbit hole we go of qualifying everything we've said with additional concerns, and what that would sort of look like for creating a comprehensible report. I think I will now advocate for if it's already, if the concerns are already addressed elsewhere in a organization's statement, we just leave it as is.
I can pull up their statement, if everyone, because eventually we are going to look at them. So let's see here.
Maybe while you're doing that, Lindsay, I'll second Nicole's comment. I mean, it's if we did this for, I mean, there's consequences to everything that we're talking about here, and there's opinions and positions. If we had to do that for everything, that's fine, but I don't think that's what the report is designed to do or accommodate even. And yeah, if one member has wants to share something, I think the statement at the end as an appendix to the report is probably the best opportunity to do that.
Okay. Here is their statement. It's been an honor to be a member of the Source Reduction Working Group regarding the pressing issue of waste management and environmental conservation within our city and county of Honolulu. Retail merchants in Hawaii continue to be concerned about our hyena and have supported many initiatives that preserve and protect our environment. Retailers are supportive of recycling initiatives that are reasonable. We seek to find a balance that will not only be beneficial to the environment, but also not place undue burden on businesses and the community that would make way an even more expensive place to live. As an active participant in the source reduction working group, we understand firsthand our environment and community well-being. This group has been dedicated to finding sustainable solutions to mitigate impacts and promote culture of source reduction and waste minimization. We believe that effective waste management begins with identifying a variety of source reduction strategies in addition to understanding the overall and comprehensive effect these strategies have, not only on the environment, but the community, the cost factors, infrastructure, and the limitations of being an island state. As always, we look forward to continuing working with your administration on these matters, as together we can make a significant impact on preserving our environment and building a more resilient community. So with that, I do think that their position is represented. So for both this comment and the next one, which is similar, which talks about the unintended consequence of the bag ban, which is according to this commenter, it increased shoplifting. So I do think that those are very specific details, and since we are proposing to change the bag ban or the current food-based bill or ordinance, then perhaps just the overall balance of having things happen and knowing that the consequences are represented. So if anyone has any additional worries or concerns about that, we can talk about it again at the end as we're getting closer to approving the report, but I think it's probably a good place to keep moving along. So next section is why is source reduction important? We did have kind of a clarification a little bit about what source reduction focuses on and how it's the prevention of waste upstream of disposal, and it's the preferred strategy for maintaining solid waste management. It doesn't change what was said here. It's just a slightly different, more clear version of how to say it. So I'm going to keep going, but if you have any concerns, yes.
It says above disposal, but it's actually above recycling also. So do we want to make that distinction? True, it's above disposal, but it's also above recycling.
Sure, I think that's a good suggestion. It's upstream of recycling and disposal. Did I hear someone join?
I think maybe Nicole on a different device or.
Nah, I just accidentally closed the browser, so I'm back.
Oh, okay.
And then there was some other minor text edits here in this paragraph. On the next page, there was suggestion to add and quantities after types. Since this is talking about the 2017 waste composition study. It provided information about the types and quantities of material present in the waste stream. And then another text edit, and then as well as information on recycling. So that was just an additional piece of information added. In the next paragraph, under figure 2, there was a couple of word suggestion changes from resources to programs, and then trying to clarify the plan we were talking about was specifically the integrated solid waste management plan. There's a comment here. So at the end of this paragraph, it says additional links to background information such as the 2019 integrated solid waste management plan update, the 2017 composition study, and other information on source reduction are provided and except someone deleted that. Is there a reason, or was that a maybe a row deletion. That was you.
That means the. Sorry, that's it.
While you're looking that up, I would just suggest that we don't delete it because it is introducing the appendix F, and there are a bunch of links there that have all of these different reports in it. And it would be important to keep those there. They're helpful to the overall version. This statement here, and then you can see my like stuff is deleted.
Maybe that was a road deletion. I apologize.
No worries. You see, you never know with Acrobat. Sometimes different versions don't translate over, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, so we'll keep that in. So that brings us down to section 3, the purpose of the source reduction working group. And we didn't see any text changes to the introduction part. Under 3.2, we have just some minor word suggestion changes here. Now we'll read the source reduction working group convenes representatives. And then there was a comment at this final paragraph here to be revised to make it a little bit more clear about what we're actually talking about and what the goal is. And so I made a proposed revision to that. Achieving more source reduction for Oahu will require ongoing discussions and coordination that extends beyond the 1-year appointed term for the SRWG and will require the participation and support by many additional stakeholders. Source reduction working group members are encouraged to stay involved in efforts to drive more source reduction for the island. Does that change, address the concern that that paragraph is not clear, Mike?
Sorry. I think so. Yeah, I don't want to hold up people, but maybe we could just move on.
Okay. We can come back to it.
Digest it a little bit. Yeah.
Something we want to tweak a little bit more.
Okay.
All right, now that brings us to section 4, which is the methodology. The word eventually was struck. Just what was reduced. And then under the members table or the footnote for Jessica Leorna, it is now been changed to state was unable to participate in the source reduction working group process after source reduction working group meeting number 3. Just wanted to make sure it was more clear that she wasn't taken out of the committee and just she was not able to participate.
For accuracy purposes, can you just remove my title? Because I'm actually rotating. So currently I'm not acting manager or chief.
Yes. Just remove it?
Yeah.
Your many hats. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, that brings us to 4.2. This is the process. There, I changed this to be more accurate because this was held between April 2023 and May 2024. So these dates have been added, and the addition of in accordance with Sunshine Law was also added to be clear that we did follow Sunshine Law protocol. And this next paragraph has a couple of changes to clarify just the intent of the messaging here. I don't really think there's anything too, controversial here, but I'll let you just take a peek at it for a second. Hold on. Eunice, please interrupt me if I am not getting any cues or anything.
Nope, nope. No,
Okay.
no raised hands or anything.
Thank you. All right, moving on then to permitted interaction groups. Let's introduce them, and then we also talked about all of the meetings that were held. Suggested edits by some of the committee, the members, just minor word changes. And then talks about the members. I didn't see changes to this portion. Until we get to meeting number 4, and there was a little bit of some confusion or questions later on asking about why there were a certain number of votes for different actions. So I tried to add a statement here to clarify that a little bit. So now it states that the members voted to move forward with the considerations that received 5 or more votes, which was quorum for the meeting, and voting details are included in the meeting summary for meeting number 4. So hopefully that clarifies about the votes. And then for meeting number 5, I have put in a placeholder text that just said at meeting 5, the members discussed comments on the draft report and adopted the source reduction working group report as revised. We can certainly revise this more if something else happens during the meeting, but if does anyone currently have any additions that they want added to this description for meeting number 5?
Any comments from the virtual forum? Is coming back?
Right, and was there a comment in the chat?
No comment. I think that was just Haley rejoining.
Okay. That brings us to section 5 now. These are the recommended actions, and this intro paragraph had a couple of suggested word changes that were made by a couple of people. Try to clarify, instead of the same working group, the source reduction working group. And then this other statement was added here: require additional analysis and action before possible implementation. So that was changed for future steps and evaluations to continue assessing feasibility. So just a little bit different spin on that. Same messaging though. Under evaluate funding strategies 5.1, there was a suggestion to add this statement here in place of, here I'll highlight it a little bit, make it a little easier to see. And now would read: the source reduction working group recognizes that most new source reduction initiatives may require funding for development and implementation, and some may require ongoing financial support. Similar messages before. Some suggestions to strike some of this detail about working together, and it says instead are encouraged to work together and seek out state and community partnerships. And I see some minor text changes under section 5.1.3, second paragraph. Next change is under 5.2, construction and demolition waste recommended actions. All right, so I got one comment. So, Would it be possible to note that the reported C&D diversion is in fact material that was landfill? PBT landfill collected wood waste and put it in a dedicated landfill cell with the hopes that someone would surface as an end user, which never happened. And then the proposed response that I suggested was consider adding a footnote to the figure that clarifies this, because it does say diversion here. Is there any opposition to that? Would that be okay to add that?
Maybe just a comment. So I totally agree with that comment. However, I thought that I think they called it like land banking, that waste. I thought that stopped several years ago, and I don't think they did it. That practice has been had been going on for the window of 5 years that we're looking at right there, but I may be completely wrong about that. But I think it predates, is it 2018.
Okay.
But if somebody knows better than I do, please, offer that.
But did you have any more information about that?
Yeah, it's a good one, Mike. I think so you can see the spikes in C&D recycling, and so that's like what I was noticing. It was basically whenever Steve Joseph left PVT is when they stopped doing that, and I think it was closer to 2020, like right in the middle there. Right. I can find out more on that.
I think we may have information too, Quinn. But yeah, maybe we can both look into it on both fronts, because we get this data a couple of different ways. One way is by surveying recycling companies and waste processors like PVT, and we also ask the Department of Health for information on what, like a permitted waste processor like PVT, what they report to DOH in terms of the material that they take in every year. And if I remember correctly, it's like several years now, but if I remember correctly, the bulk of the material that we're looking at in 2018 and 2019 actually wasn't PVT. It was like, it was reported by like Pine Ridge and Grace Pacific for recycled asphalt, as recycled asphalt. But we can, I think we can go back in our records and check that.
Okay, so how about we do this? We agree to look into that, and if there was a condition that it was actually PVT and it wasn't actually being recycled, we can add a footnote. If not, but there is additional explanation maybe needed to just explain what those numbers mean a little bit, we could do that too.
Oh, yes.
Does it sound like an okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for the comment. All right, that brings us to section 5.2.1. And this is adopt a diversion regulation and or deconstruction ordinance. And so this one kind of changed title. The comment here is a deconstruction directive something different from an ordinance, or would that be one example? And so I suggest that on the next page, let's see. We've got the statement that other county agencies within blah, 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 regulate or track diversion. We could add some text that describes the range of ways that this can be done, and also refers to a good resource with some policy templates. So I I found a new resource, since doing this report, and we could add that new resource. It has some nice policy templates in it. So we could add that right around here. Oh. Right here, sorry. So this was focused on a diversion. I think that is a change. Maybe the comment is just not showing why it was red line, but. Renee, did you change the title of this one?
Yeah, I suggested a change, but that's not tied to this comment.
Okay, but is the title that's shown here what you suggested or not?
No,
No. I think I got in the table. Oh, sorry for being confusing me.
Oh, I see. Please edit to evaluate a diversion.
Okay, so this suggestion was to evaluate a diversion and or deconstruction ordinance or statute. That was.
another behind. So what did we do with the previous comment?
I'm gonna go back up to it, I'm sorry. So the one about the PBT landfill or the one about,
The difference between ordinance and directive?
right?
Question.
So I was just asking, if a directive was a kind of option, policy option that could be added.
Oh, okay. And what was the added English to them to address that?
So, sorry. There. Okay, so the comment was, is a deconstruction directive something different from an ordinance? Or would that be one example? And so I just said, in this statement, other county agencies within the state of Hawaii and elsewhere in the United States regulate or track the diversion of C&D waste in deconstruction buildings. We could say that this is done in a variety of ways. I didn't actually put the text, but we could do that right now. This can be done in a variety of ways, from a deconstruction directive, deconstruction ordinance, tipping, differential tipping, and other methods. And then I was suggesting to add this other resource for some other examples of policy templates.
Or just for clarification, I believe there is a difference between the directive and the ordinance.
Okay.
So, but if you're using it as examples, I think it's fine. But, I guess the context makes a difference. So like, other agencies in the state of Hawaii and elsewhere regulate or track, but so we track, we don't regulate. But, yeah, so there's a distinction. It's not quite sure. So I know there's a broad range, but
So this is just suggesting that you adopt one of those ways. At least that was the original title, adopt a diversion regulation and or deconstruction ordinance. I know that you. Oh, there was one comment, there is suggestion to change to consider a diversion or deconstruction ordinance or statute. And then in the table, a different comment, which was evaluate a diversion and or deconstruction ordinance or statute.
Yeah, either or. I think we brought that one up. Mainly because, like you said, it seemed as though it wasn't quite directed in one direction. So I think it still needed to be evaluated. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true, especially since we don't know if it's a directive or an ordinance. Any issues with changing it to evaluate? The other option,
Or consider.
or consider. I think consider might be better. And it says, okay, so I'll just change it to this one. Make the change in here, and executive summary, and then in the table. Okay. We're making great progress, everybody. Thank you. All right, then the next. Talked about those, they were just down on each other. All right, then it says related to this, I know we talked about discounting tipping fees for those involved in reuse and recycling. But the other impact is that the tipping fees are too low. PVT tipping fee is $78 per ton. In contrast, in Seattle, it's $145, I believe. I'm not sure if you want to add a fact on that. And then I suggested with the added text mentioned in previous comment, consider adding variable landfill tipping fees and higher landfill fees. A reference to the latest annual survey of national landfill rates could be added. Anyone have any thoughts about that? I will move forward with that.
Did Quinn want to say something?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I just made it's just been an interesting note about the difference in tipping fees as compared to other places. And sometimes there's just a distance. We just see a lot of commingling of recyclable material and dumpsters. It's just easier and cheaper to take it out of the landfill. So not sure what we do about that, but I just wanted to point that out because it kind of fit in with that section.
Yeah, I think since we were talking about different ways, it wouldn't hurt to just at least have a reference to those landfill tipping fees. Okay. All right. That brings us down to this section 5.2.1.1 impacts and benefits. And there was a suggestion, a general comment or throughout the report, instead of saying diverted from landfills, I think it would be better to say diverted from disposal, meaning landfills and H power, and even a little bit of recycling, which is what source reduction truly aims to do. So that would say implementation of a diversion regulation and or construction policy for C&D waste on Oahu would have a large impact on source reduction by increasing the amount of C&D waste diverted from disposal. Sorry. And then next area, there's a question for under examples. It says in the county of Hawaii, a solid waste management plan is required for all developments seeking an environmental assessment, environmental impact statement or special use permit. And the comment was, can we please double check that one is not required for the city and county of Honolulu? I could be wrong, but I thought a waste plan was required, although maybe with not as many green elements as the Hawaii County requirements. I was not able to figure out if that was the case. I did look, I didn't see anything screaming at me. Does anyone on the call or in the room know?
Sam, Emily Stone. I'll jump in. So I believe that DOH requires construction sites that are going to dispose waste to fill out like a solid waste form. And it's more of like an informative for how much waste will be generated and where it goes, rather than like a management plan. So it's more of like a 2-pager form, just so the facilities can anticipate the level of waste coming in.
Okay. And when we were looking at the county of Hawaii, it had a little bit more to it that they were trying, and I think it might have sections in here.
Yeah, the intent of that is different from what is written here though.
Right, so I think that it's still, that's appropriate to add this or not.
The purpose is different. If the purpose is for diversion, I think that's the intent to show how it's waste is going to be managed with the intent of actually evaluating it. That it is tied to environmental impact statements. But the solid waste disclosure form really is to ensure that it's going to a legal site.
Right.
That's how we utilize that, and it's tied to their NPDS permit. It's not tied to our waste management plan.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, so I think the intent is different.
Okay, so the way it's written is fine then, I guess.
Whether it's accurate, I'm not familiar with the County of Hawaii's process in this area.
Yeah, so this was my comment, and maybe, I think I was doing this late at night and really tired, but, and so maybe it was like a little misplaced, but I get the point. The reason for making the comment was that I think this concept is a great idea. And my point was, I don't think in Honolulu, we'd be starting from scratch. I think, and I didn't know about the DOH requirement. I do think, maybe Quinn knows, I don't know, but I do think at the city level, the Department of Planning and Permitting for certain types of projects, maybe it's just like commercial, industrial, it might be for residential, particularly for like demolition projects, maybe, because you need permits for demolition. But I was fairly certain that there is a requirement for, as part of the permitting process, you have to submit like a waste management. Maybe it's a plan, maybe it's just information. But yeah, again, my point was like it was just to make the point of like, we wouldn't be, for something for Honolulu, we wouldn't be starting from scratch. There's already like a requirement on the books addressing waste from project sites, and that could be something that we could build upon for to do something more sustainable.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. So for the Honolulu permits that we pull, there's no plan requirement. That would be great. And maybe, it's possible that there's something, that's been established, but just isn't enforced or, relayed, because, DPP's had a hard couple years. So that might be interesting to see if there is some system in place that could just be brought to the forefront, and the plan checkers could start requiring that.
Yeah, that's interesting, Quinn. So not to sidetrack, but like for the demo projects that Reuse does, Does reuse do the permitting for the demolition, or does the homeowner or the property owner, or how does that work exactly?
Sometimes it's us. Occasionally there's an architect involved that does it.
Okay. And for when you do it, I guess what sort of information do you have to provide, if any, about where the material that you're taking off site is going? Nothing. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In fact, DPP has a form permit for demo, and it always says all the material is going to PVT. And I'm like, well, that's not true, but thanks for the permit anyway.
Okay. Yeah, this is a good target area, I think. Leave it at that.
Yeah, because I think it like brings it, for people that aren't thinking about it, it starts to, change the mindset of contractors and folks that need to be starting to think about like what are their responsibilities and opportunities for waste reduction. Even if it's not like you have to do this, it's like maybe you're required to submit a plan. So at least it gets it, out into the general industry more.
Yeah.
So it says the city currently does not regulate the diversion of C&D waste away from landfills or deconstruction of buildings to minimize landfill C&D waste. You could say something about, however, looking at the existing, permit requirements, maybe a place to start from, and could be expanded upon to provide, more diversion or something like that. That might be a spot to add something about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, if there is something in place, it's certainly easier to build upon something, I think, than try to create something new. And I'm still wondering, absolutely take Quinn's word for it, but I could swear that I've come across a project before, and maybe it's like a larger commercial industrial, and maybe it's just new construction where I thought a waste management plan is required. I don't recall, and I should know the answer to this, but I don't recall, certainly no diversion requirements or reuse requirements or anything like that. But I did think that the contractor was generally required to report on how the waste is being managed. And if I'm correct and that is the case, then maybe that's something to build on. But if I'm completely just spacing on this, then that's a huge opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, it could have been a lead project, or sometimes with government contracts, they ask for that, a waste management plan.
Yeah, because LEED does require that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Renee, what were you about to say?
No, I was gonna say that I've seen that too, but I don't think it was tied to a demolition permit. I could be wrong, but I thought it was tied to some sort of a land use permit or something of that nature. But I don't think it's across the board.
Okay,
From what I've seen.
all right. Well, I can try to add some generic language just to say that I can start looking at what it's the current requirements for contractors related to waste and build on that. All right. That's down here. All right, under implementation. Oh, I just clarified which county this was for. All right, and then there was a comment after the sentence that says requirement and identification of licensed waste haulers in the plan would also prevent potential misuse of transfer stations or recycling and reuse facilities. And the comment was need to explain how these could be misused. So Any thoughts on what to elaborate on for that?
So this was my comment, but now I'm trying to remember why I made it.
Is this just trying to say that that there are waste haulers working on a commercial scale that are using transfer stations as sort of a residential use in a way? Like, is that what?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Amy. I think that's what it was. That's a big, currently a big problem for us. Essentially, transfer stations, convenience centers are really only designed for residential type waste, but we know that we have a lot of commercial, quote unquote, misuse, abuse at the stations. We have plans in the works to address it, but it's still currently an issue.
Okay. And change out the word disposal for landfills. A minor word change here, and then there was another comment. Let's see, recommended, text edit right here, and elaboration. What specific attempts by the city have been made to develop C&D related ordinances and resolutions, and recommend including ordinance and resolution numbers for reference? And then what makes the current C&D management situation much more dire? Recommend elaborating to support understanding of the current C&D management situation and of factors that contribute to its direness. So the direness is that PDT landfill is closing in a couple of years, and there is not an alternative C&D landfill. Also, it's just you have a future disposal issue anyways, and C&D takes up a lot of material space. And so it's definitely not the best use of any landfill space. And materials are incredibly expensive. So we could certainly elaborate on this a little. I know that early on, I think it was meeting 1, pull up some old slides real quick. We talked a little bit about some of the policies that were considered back in 2017. So I can try to add some of these into the text, unless anyone else has a better list already. Or we can look at. But these were the ones that we were referring to originally. So we can just kind of build those either into some sort of a footnote or work them into the text for clarification. And then add some context about why the situation is so dire. Any issues with that? No. Okay. Another minor text change here. And then that brings us to section 5.2.2. All right, and this item here is highlighted, and it says, as a potential solution, industry stakeholders and city agencies could work with the state to streamline and simplify the permitting process for C&D material management. And then it says, please describe the problem mentioned here. And again, this was just those contractors, when a new recycling or C&D or concrete processor wants to come online, it's very difficult, and it's kind of keeping them from joining the system. So
I guess that's my confusion, because we keep talking about reuse. And then, but the whole solution here is on recycling. So we don't permit reuse facilities that reuse materials for its original intended purpose, like doors and windows and whatnot. But if you're gonna process the material to something else, then we consider that recycling and permit that. So, the title is for reuse, but we only talk about recycling. So if there's, and I wasn't part of the PIG, so I don't know what the discussion was. Was there any other permitting problems that with the reuse side?
I think it was talking about like CM cement recyclers, and so
So it's recycling, not reuse.
however, you are still reusing, right? So like you're segregating the material from cement and then it's getting reused in a different way.
It's being processed into another form. So it's recycling.
Yeah.
Reuse. So the other permits that could be utilized for reuse facilities could be like zoning or land use permits, special use permits, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So if there is no problems with that, and then if we want to focus on recycling, then we can talk about recycling. I know this is a source reduction working group, but to me, the transition of the terms is misleading and confusing for me, or at least for me, I don't know about others, but that's,
What about just having, so, you know, say you have a big demolition, you have a lot of kinds of material. All of the C and D is taken, say it's taken to a processing facility, right? Some of those materials might be recycled, but some of them might be just reused, but you would still get a permit to cover the activities of
yeah, so if someone
taking
is,
the material, segregating it, and then figuring out where it goes from there, correct?
so, Alan,
Alan's not on.
yeah, so Alan Demo does that, you know, they take material, they salvage, they, and they take, you consider them a transfer station.
Right.
So materials have been.
I think he's the one that brought this up, so I think he's thinking that there is a.
Yeah, so
There.
if, I guess I'm hung up on the term you use. So maybe if we can say for expand it a little bit more, I know it's outside the scope of the report, but make that clarification that it's not
Something recycling and potential reuse.
for solid waste management or something of that nature. Because we permit all the solid waste management.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not specific to use.
Can we just change it to processing, because then it can be open to, what does that mean, right? It could be recycling or reuse.
Reuse would be.
I'd want to be careful too, that we don't have like, I mean, this is obviously a good, I think it's a good idea. But it's just a little bit of a scope creep for this, for our group. And I mean, I think if, I recall Quinn raising the point about like how, so Alan certainly talked about this, but also Quinn mentioned, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, Quinn, about how like it's difficult to have space for like large influxes of material, like when a hotel closes down, for example.
Right.
And you know, to just kind of scale up for that, but then like scale back down, and so like space is a problem. Yeah, and I kind of even remember talking about this, the permitting for. But I think it was, I recall it being more in the context of like, I guess, you know, it doesn't, in the context of reuse, but I guess like to Lene's point, it really don't permit reuse operations. But maybe like more, maybe it was more so like a transfer, like a material transfer facility, now that I'm thinking about it. Not so much a processing operation, which would be permitted, that would be permitted, I think. Where materials like being unloaded onto the ground as soon as it hits the ground, I think is one of the times it gets regulated.
So could we change it to streamlining the permitting process for C and D material management? Transfer, or I don't know.
That's
Or-
probably, sorry, go ahead, Clay.
Well, or C&D material recycling. Does that? Maybe it's just, you know, maybe the using the word reuse there kind of confuses things a bit. So recycling
I just
instead,
think
just
that
like,
whenever you're doing recycling, there are opportunities to set things aside and actually reuse things, but you're not gonna have that if you don't have that facility to collect the material, stockpile, segregate it, stockpile it. So it is a bit of a transfer, but it's also a bit of a kind of a pre-processing where you're like sorting through and deciding what you're going to do with it next. And you won't have the reuse if you don't have that.
right,
But
I guess,
Go ahead, Quinn,
Sorry.
sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead.
I guess my thought would be, just to kind of stay true to the report would be not to really talk about recycling. And although it's not ideal, I'd probably recommend that it stay more ambiguous and just limit it to material management. And then, the takeaway would be that, look, this obviously like space to manage this material is an issue. We recognize that. And then, whether it's for reuse or actually recycling it. And so, it's just the issue in general is a problem, and maybe just not go into the specifics of like the actual use of the site.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't articulate that very well, but I think it's just as a general problem under which reuse falls. And so I think we could apply it to reuse, but it also is applicable to recycling.
And your point about the storage is elsewhere in the report, talking about the need to provide, storage and warehousing for material like they do in San Francisco and other places.
Yeah, that's in a different action, right?
That's the next section.
Yep, the next action. Okay, well, I can try to make this more general and take out the word reuse. Generalize it so it's not specifying what you're doing with it.
But then then you gotta make sure that the applicability of the solid waste permit applies
Yeah,
without knowing what the intent is.
I know.
So that's,
Unfortunately, there was 6 members that voted for this during the meeting, so.
yeah, but it was for consideration moving forward without seeing what the language was gonna be. So I didn't realize that was gonna be the only example. I thought it was gonna include like zoning and other kinds of permits that are that's required for reuse facilities.
Okay.
But that's why I got even more confused when we were talking about a recycling permit.
So would your preference maybe to just strike that action in its entirety? Because the storage problem is mentioned in the next action, so we're not losing anything with the space.
I turned to the pig who discussed this in detail, like what the actual problem is, and we're going to continue to do what we're doing as far as moving to permitting and stuff, but as it applies to reuse, was there anything else that could be put in here to expand and help move that forward?
I do not think that we got into that level of detail. Emily, maybe you remember otherwise. I did pull the one slide that we had, and it was streamlined permitting processes for C&D concrete recyclers. That's really
Yeah. I don't think we got into the specific details. But what I'm hearing from this conversation is that in order to set up a new space or facility, it would require more than just a solid waste permit is what I'm hearing. There's zoning permits, potentially like special use permits depending on the location. So maybe I'm hearing that it would be general streamlining of permitting process. Is that what you're saying for setting up like a new
facility? Actually, I guess I'm taking a step back and asking what's the concern? What other permits is difficult to obtain for these facilities? And could we bring that in? I don't know. I mean, I haven't tried applying for that, and I wasn't part of the particular discussions. So, I'm not discounting the importance of what's here. It's just the placement of it in this section. That's just the confusing part.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. I guess something that's sticking, or I'm remembering is Alan mentioning like education as a, in terms of like the permitting process itself doesn't necessarily need, changing, right? Like from a DOH perspective, but perhaps like the educational side to educate,
Just make it
in
easier.
the industry, yes. So what are ways to make it easier? Do people understand what the permits are? Do they know how to apply?
Usually meet with them.
Okay,
Okay, well. Unfortunately, Alan is not here. I think he was the person that was really leading the charge on this. I think that perhaps we need to just strike it. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm feeling a little conflicted because I feel like you have to have places to accept material in order to be able to reuse it. And that is the barrier, because he's saying that there are enough people doing that, but that, the specific kind of permit, I'm not exactly sure. But I don't think it's worth not approving the report about, so.
I'm sorry, I know I'm not part of the group. But I wonder if it's okay to write something more about like exploring this. It requires perhaps like further,
See if there is a barrier.
yeah, kind of investigate more of like, what are the barriers to establishing more storage areas? What are ways to support?
I do think that the next section does talk about staging and storing areas. That, at least that is covered.
Well, if you wanna, being that Alan is not here and you wanna leave this in, can you just say recycling then? I know there's the mix of terminologies and not terminology, I mean, mix of waste management priorities, but as long as it's consistent in this section, that's not recycling or transfer stations or it's just contrary to the purpose.
Okay. So change it instead of for reuse, say recycling, or say for recycling and reuse. But I really do think it's like there is like, even at recycling facilities, you have opportunities for reuse.
Okay, so what if, don't want to hold this up, but with what Brandon suggested, we just talk about CD material management, establishing new recycling facilities, reuse. And I think it might be okay. And then you just remove, recycling facilities. It is a little different. But address, Alan's concern.
Okay, so, sorry, again, title would be changed to work towards streamlining the permitting process for C&D material management. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then the next sentence, the permitting process for C&D material
Recycling.
recycling, take out and reuse.
Yes, because his one example was concrete recycling, right? So,
Currently poses a barrier for establishing new recycling
facilities.
facilities. Okay, thank you. I will go through and take out the other reuse parts of that paragraph to be in alignment. Oh,
So Lindsay, can you add a line in there that says as in the mention of these recycling facilities, that those present a potential for reuse if established, something like that, so that it catches that piece?
thank you, that's a great suggestion. Thank you. All right. I think we can move on to the next item. That action not have any markups with. All right, and then now we're down to 5.3, which is the photovoltaic panel waste recommended actions. Throughout this section, there was a couple different ways these materials and metals were discussed. Sometimes it said harmful, sometimes it said dangerous. I can't remember, but anyways, we've just taken those extra words out, and it will now say toxic metals. The next comment was the question under 5.3.1. Under the panel installers are encouraging owners to replace their panels before the panel lifespan is over to install newer high-performance panel technologies. And the comment that was added was, why is this a problem in itself, or is this because people are not maintaining panels? So my recollection of this was that it's just kind of like pushing the newest cell phone on you. You know, your cell phone works just fine, but there's the newer variety that someone wants to sell you. And so that was the comment that was being, or that was the issue that was being represented.
I think we could probably just like add something then that notes that that's like their installers are like pushing them to get rid of them prematurely or something like that. Just something that kind of frames it better.
Okay.
Or just to the end of that sentence, because it says the installers are encouraging owners to replace their panels before the panel lifespan is over. So that kind of hits that, yeah, it's premature. To install newer high performance panel technologies to increase sales and or available renewable energy. Because sometimes they push for a change because somebody wants more renewable energy, but they don't have the space. So the only way to get it is to put a newer panel in with, you know, that's like looking at the installers in the best light possible, but the increased sales is more likely.
Yeah, okay, I like that. Thank you for that suggestion. I added it. All right, the next paragraph, 5.2.1.1, impacts and benefits. Change the word education on to raising awareness of, and then added after could inform owners, we added and contractors. Okay. Then the next edit, again, was around toxicity, so we took out the word environmental. And then there was a comment that was a kind of a question, are there reuse programs for? Oh, hold on. Please do not restart. This was the bullet on PD panel reuse options, and the question was, are there reuse programs? If not, shouldn't this be development of reuse programs? So when you have some reuse programs, correct?
I'm sorry.
When,
I was slow with my unmuting.
no worries.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we had kind of mixed results in the demand for them. And we took like a huge donation, and they've been sitting around. So yeah, we're still evaluating you know, how much demand there is for the reuse of the panels. I mean, there's definitely some, you know, a lot of people on Big Island, farmers, people with more space than, you know, than rooftop. They just put them out on the, you know, install them out on the ground. But yeah, I wish I had better news. It's looking like it's going to be tough. But luckily, Inner Island Solar Supply has their recycling option.
Right.
Except it's like $30 a panel, so I think people are a little nervous about the cost adding up for that. But maybe that's a reason why they would, you know, have the panels last longer, you know, if it costs a lot of money to get rid of them.
So this list was supposed to be bullets of potential items that would be included with the kind of public education campaign. So, I mean, I think, is it all right if we leave it just PD panel reuse options on a logo for working panels? Because there is some, and the education could talk about how, you know, what's currently working, what's not there. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. And then the next one was, please add the following bullet: regulatory requirements for proper handling, recycling, and disposal, including universal waste regulations. So great suggestion. Should have just added it. That,
Ideally, that'd be the first bullet.
yeah, I think good call. You try that again. All right. Long. Is everybody doing okay, or do folks need like a 5-minute break? We're making great progress. Way better than it appears, because most of the rest of the file, I think, is a lot of appendices, so. Everybody doing okay? All right, well, let me know if you need a break. All right, moving down file. Under section 5.3.2.2 impacts and benefits. There was some suggested language changes here, again, taking out the word hazardous. And then in this sentence about mid-paragraph here, it used to say managing the PV panel waste stream protects the environment. Suggested change now is managing the PV panel waste stream in a manner that ensures toxic material is not released into the environment. would suggest to change. Any issues with that? Okay. And then under the next section, 5.3.2.3, example, just change the word good for wood. Thanks. Changes are under 5.3.4, explore extended producer responsibility. Previously said, the DOH is currently exploring EPR options. Recommended changes, EPR options for PV panels are currently being explored. Okay. And this under 5.3.4.3, again, the DOH is being replaced with the words city and state agencies.
So I just wanted to clarify that, a lot of the work is also being done with, state office of state energy office.
Okay,
So, there's been a number of bills also in the legislature that has, that has been brought up, that brought both of our agencies and others, not just us, but, so I just want to make it clear that it's not just, it's multiple state agencies working on this, it's not just one.
okay, I think that's great. So does your suggested edit cover your concerns, or do you feel like you need more?
No, I think it's fine. I just wanted to clarify,
Yeah,
explain why we're doing that.
I think
That's not that we don't want to be a part of it, we are a part of it, it's just that there's other.
It's more than just you.
It's just not, it's more than.
Okay, perfect. So those two changes have been made in the file. Then moving down the list. That brings us down to section 5.4.1, support. Well, excuse me, it originally said initiate reusable container and mobile washing program. There was a recommendation to change it a couple different ways. One was initiate reusable container pilot program. Another was support establishment of reusable container and mobile washing pilot program. Are there any issues with changing the action title?
I mean, I hate to wordsmith by committee. It's probably one of the worst things ever. But what I would say here is that support establishment, the recommendation here should just be establish reusable container mobile washing pilot. If that is the recommendation, that's the right. I mean, that's support establishment is.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
establish. I would, but I'm not wed to that. So.
How's about continuing work towards initiating?
Sorry, say that again.
Continue work towards?
Continue work towards.
I don't know what, sorry, I guess it's hard to hear. What's the suggestion there?
Continue work towards reusable container and mobile washing pilot program.
I don't care. That would be another way of saying to establish it, right? So
Yeah.
I just going for brevity here in the title.
So your recommendation is establish reusable container and mobile washing pilot program. Is there any hesitation on using that word, Renee?
Well, I just wanted to make it, thought it was clear that we needed to do additional evaluation. So I wasn't sure if we're at the place where it could actually be established yet. So that was the only point to make.
Lindsay Nicole also has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Nicole?
Hi, can you hear me? My headphones just stopped working.
Yes.
Your sounds good.
Okay. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you now,
Okay.
but I wasn't hearing you.
Yeah, there's a weird lag, Nicole.
Okay, but now I'm back.
Yes.
Great. I like the established reusable container program. Continuing sort of insinuates that the city has been involved, which is not the case to my awareness. And to Lene's point about the need for sort of further investigation, I would suggest looking at other municipalities, including the, $2 million that's being invested in Hawaii County as a way to sort of do investigation by proxy. I don't know that we're going to be that terribly individual that we'll need something vastly different from Hawaii County. So those were my thoughts. And specifically on the mobile piece, I had a thought and then I lost it. So I'll come back if I remember it.
So I think the reason it originally said initiate reusable container and mobile washing program is that was trying to acknowledge that, you might not have all the details figured out, but that you're gonna start down that road.
Oh, okay. That's,
Yeah,
okay. I agree with that statement.
okay. So I can't remember, I'm sorry, but I combined everybody's comments. It's hard to remember who had what comment, but was there another comment on this title, or would it be okay to be reverted back to initiate reusable container and mobile washing program?
That works for me.
Okay. And Nicole, I think that we talk about the refillable stuff a little later, but maybe I'm just remembering your letter instead, so maybe I got that confused. Were you suggesting we add another example or something else to the text?
No, I just realized I was kind of conflating what is happening in Hawaii County with this suggestion. The suggestion we've made is to pilot a mobile dishwashing facility. That is not what Hawaii County is doing. So I guess generally speaking, I feel like it's important to acknowledge that $2 million has been allotted to researching how to implement reusables already in another county, but I don't think we need to put that in here. I put it in my statement.
Yes, that's
So.
where I remember it now. So speaking of your statement, I think this is yours. Right?
That is mine. I also realized everybody else put a logo, so maybe I should re-upload with a logo. I thought we were supposed to use that heading.
I like it. I think it's very nice.
Okay, great.
Okay, is it all right, do you mind if I think it's a good time to actually read your statement since yours talks a lot about this portion, and that way people have seen it. As the outgoing executive director of Zero Waste Oahu, a community-driven NGO with a mission to rebuild a waste-free and equitable Hawaii, I appreciate the time and space to connect with diverse stakeholders on the topic of waste reduction through this working group. Our small NGO is founded based on the empirical evidence that reducing our waste footprint is critical to climate, community, and ecosystem health. We were thrilled to see the city and county of Honolulu uphold their commitment to bring stakeholders together around this topic. The working group could not feasibly and thoroughly consider the cost benefit of every action that the city and county of Honolulu could take or support to ensure less materials are entering our landfill, incinerator, or overburdening recycling systems. Solid waste is a vast topic that spans sectors. It can originate from industrial practices, production processes, construction and demolition, convenience-driven food and product packaging, and anything in between. Waste may be toxic or non-toxic, recyclable or not, or compostable or not. The ideal is to create processes and products where reuse is a given. Toxicity is not present, and costly downstream waste management infrastructure is minimized. I hope this working group made it clear that waste prevention is what we need to invest in, and that there are many actions to implement that require no further studies. Waste reduction is the solution that people, the planet, and our climate desperately need. Before we build more expensive waste processing infrastructure or try and solve the issues of the global recycling market, we need to mitigate the untracked and ever-growing mountain of trash we create and spend lots of money to manage. That way we can create composting, recycling, and other waste management systems that are optimized at a scale that has the least amount of burden on frontline communities. Zero Waste Oahu has largely focused on solutions and policy to packaging and product waste from fast-moving goods, including convenience items and a food product packaging. Waste reduction in this sector is a low-hanging fruit, but the city and county can also take immediate action to address. Although brands and packaging producers market throwaway items as the best choice or strategically entrap consumers in systems dependent on overpackaged and throwaway goods, it remains true that throwaway goods are neither the only choice nor a good choice. The county of Hawaii has taken action to address this problematic waste stream by securing over $2 million to pursue a reusable takeout food packaging system for the town of Hilo. Instead of creating landfill-bound rubbish for the food and beverage packaging, municipal leadership is investing in long-term sustainability and preventing waste from reaching the landfill. This will save taxpayers money on landfill maintenance, minimize the frequency with which new landfills need to be opened to prevent climate and ecosystem impacts from making and managing single-use packaging, and enable a local circular economy to flourish and create jobs. Given the incredible leadership and foresight from the County of Hawaii, it is worth noting that the first reusable takeout packaging program in Hawaii was piloted here in the city and county of Honolulu. During the 2-year pilot program, which operated with a handful of food service partners and was managed by Zero Waste Oahu, we prevented 20,000 containers from entering the waste stream. This saved at least 1.4 tons of waste and 1 ton of carbon emissions. Even with the water required to wash reusables, we saved 4,600 gallons in comparison to the water needed to make throwaway packaging. Imagine what positive impacts would be realized for Oahu's climate, oceans, and communities if this program were supported to scale up like is happening in Hilo. This pilot program called Full Cycle Takeout was achieved with support from community partners and capital from federal and private sector funders. However, the city and county has yet to partner with invest in or support this proactive, impactful, and very practical solution to one major component of the municipal solid waste stream. I urge the city and county to follow suit with neighbor island leadership and take action to create a food service sector built on reuse and that embodies circular economy principles. As I write this letter, press releases are flooding my inbox announcing the EU Parliament's recent vote to regulate packaging waste. This vote echoes the local action taken by our neighbors on Hawaii Island. Packaging reduction and reuse programs have tangible and proven impact, and we don't need more working groups to discuss the solution. Reuse is being readopted around the world as well as in our own state. It's time to move beyond managing a burdensome amount of trash and take decisive action to proactively reduce our waste stream. With appreciation and gratitude, and the majority to share some time. Thank you. All right. So thank you for putting those thoughts together, Nicole, and that will be one of the letters included in the appendix. We will look at the last letter that we received in a little bit. So that brings us sorry, couple of recommended text changes. So that. Let me just take a quick look here. A few clarifications I think were made to this text. And for this unfortunately part, it was that the original framing insinuates that the disposable takeout containers used at large events are not permitted. So the new text would now state the DFO restricts the use and sale of disposable plastic foodware, example, takeout containers, and disposable plastic serviceware, example, takeout utensils, provided by all food vendors and business operating within the city and county of Honolulu. Large public events, even when using compliant disposable takeout containers, still generate large amounts of single-use waste. Any issues with changing that text as shown? All right.
So that's not like, it's not saying we're recommending that we mandate that anything happen. It's just saying, it's just stating a fact that there is a lot of waste created at large events. Am I reading that correctly? Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's my
Yeah,
reason.
Okay.
Too.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I was just trying to explain the DFWO and then a little bit about how a lot of waste is used or made at people who use large events. All right, so then the next one is a little further down on the page, 24. And then this sentence started, as a solution, the source reduction working group recommend that policy language be modified to create an exemption for mobile washing services. And the comment was, if existing regulations require mobile washing units to be connected to a brick and mortar commercial support kitchen, then first understanding the underlying rationale for the existing regulation is required in order to propose meaningful change. That might have come from your team, Lene.
Do we know the basis for that regulation? Is it a regulation or a policy?
It's a regulation. It's a
Do we-
regulation and it's meant for food trucks so that you don't have food trucks that are operating, that their only way to process food and wash dishes and hands and the whole thing is just out of a food truck. So all food trucks have to have a brick and mortar commercial kitchen that they're attached to. And so the reason why we're suggesting this as a solution is because for washing, you're not doing food prep, you're not, having to do all that, that this is meant to create an exemption when it's just a wash truck, basically.
Was the food safety program asked about the ability to change that regulation?
No.
I haven't been able to reach them, so.
When you, I'm not sure, when you say the food safety program, what are you referencing?
The portion of the department that regulates, food safety. And food
Oh.
establishments.
I did not contact them about this.
I've spoken with them, Lene, under the, we had raised funds to purchase a mobile dishwashing unit, and in the process of planning that out and speaking to the food safety branch, they basically said there's not a mechanism by which to make that sort of food truck legal. I didn't, or non-food truck, mobile dishwashing unit. I didn't ask them if it was possible to change the language, but I've spoken with Peter Oshiro about that before on other matters. So I assume it is technically possible. Whether or not they want to is a different question, if that helps.
Okay.
Did you need any changes made or?
I mean, that's the only thing, right? I mean, if there is a basis for that regulation that we are not aware of, it's hard to say whether or not they would be open to change
Yeah.
of that, and I can't speak for the department on that area.
So instead of it saying as a solution, the source reduction recommend that policy language be modified to create an exemption for mobile dishwashing services, removing the requirement of a brick and mortar support kitchen for mobile dishwashing services. Do you want to add something like if possible, or, I mean, I don't know.
Well, one thing that could be done is rather than saying as a solution, you know, just saying that the source reduction working group recommends that policy language be modified for this. And it's not necessarily that that's the solution, but that might be what could help. It may be that a full new regulation, we don't modify existing language. Anyway, there's different ways to do this. So rather than saying that that is the solution, that we just.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that. That's a good suggestion. Thank you. All right, that brings us down to 5.4.1.1. And the statement here, it is also important to remember that a large amount of food-related packaging litters our beaches and oceans, escaping detection and quantification in waste composition studies. And it says, please provide a reference. So we will update that with a reference. The next comment. All right. The PIC associated with this topic felt that the first step to successfully implementing this recommendation would be to modify existing policy to remove the requirement for mobile dishwashing services to be connected. I actually think this is fine now since we changed that. And next comment then is next statement. Here, and the comment is based on my review of the meeting notes, I asked if a pilot could be done. Fully answered the question as the application here does not apply. Suggest deleting this sentence. So the sentence is, however, through conversations with the larger source reduction working group, Lene Ichikusubo of DOH Solid and Hazardous Waste Branch expressed her opinion that policy changes can be rather difficult, but may have more success than other specific pilot projects showed success. So you'd like that just to be removed. Okay. And that brings us to the next action, 5.4.2. Again, this one has some different wording changes, and it currently is suggested to be continue evaluating source reduction options for product packaging, including extended producer responsibility. And that was due to the fact that we talk a lot about extended producer responsibility in this section. So any issues with changing the name? Okay. Maybe.
Comment
Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, I don't know. The other way it was drafted is maybe a bit more broad. Might be preferable, but because EPR is a really specific thing and it means a lot of different things depending on where you're doing it, what county is doing it, and where you're looking in the state of the world. So it's just kind of the term gets thrown around a lot, but it means a lot of different things. I wonder if it would just be clearer to use the old language you had.
Okay, so then it would just be continue evaluating product packaging, source reduction needs and options.
Yeah,
Any issue with that? I think that was your comment, Lene.
No,
Maybe not.
that.
I thought so, but I don't, isn't remembering. Okay,
Lindsay,
yeah,
there are also some comments in the chat.
oh. I can't see the chat, so hold on, let me see if I can figure that out.
And while you're doing that, because I don't think that's directly on the comment that Lauren made, I don't have an issue with changing it back to that more broad.
Okay. The number of comments. So one was reflecting on the C and D section. I think it's best to say adopt, not explore. I didn't follow the reasoning for changing the header. And then that we could circle back after the product packaging. So we can do that in a second. And then we've got, thank you for the reference here. The other, is there another one? I thought there was more, but yeah. Okay. So I would say revert back. Language. Okay.
Can I actually can I clarify really quick that this actual the language that we're getting to here is that there should be a task force in this section. Is that right? Because if that's the case, then actually we should just say establish a task force to evaluate product packaging or whatever the original language was.
I'm not sure that was really the intent of our discussion with the committee, but to be honest, yeah. Just because I think if you're going to do a task force on that specific on EPR, it's not, you should have a broader group of people involved than the ones that were involved in this, but.
And I think it's also because it's changing quickly and, you know, there's more to research about all of this. So, and certainly if it's going to happen, it would have to happen at a higher state level, right?
Yes, I'm not suggesting that we are the task force. I'm just saying that is that what's in the body of this text here to say, because if I look at that sentence, the working group recommends creating a task force or extending some branch of moving screen, whatever. All right. The working group recommends creating a task force or extending some branch of the working group to monitor these trends and needs to continue determining the best source reduction methods at the time. So if that's kind of what this is saying, anyway, I'm just noting that that's kind of what this is saying. The recommendation is for a group to sort of do this, not just
yeah. It's looking at it further. It's investigating it more. So.
Yeah, so then the original title's fine. I was just throwing it out there as a suggestion to say if really what we're asking is to establish a body that will focus on this and tackle this, that could be included in the title. But I have nothing else to say. I don't mind how it goes.
Any other comments on this one?
I'm wondering, if this isn't going too far off the discussion, if it's what we're recommending is a state, like the counties come together statewide, because to your point, EPR is not going to happen likely at the county level, but counties would be involved. So I'm just thinking through how realistic it is to assign a Honolulu specific EPR working group to something that is likely a state policy, or what that interrelationship looks like.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that sentence then, that's like roughly 3 or 4 down there, the working group recommends the state, creating a statewide task force, and then not saying it's an extension of this group to do that monitoring, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And it kind of echoes many of for the past 3 years at the state legislature, there has been attempts to create a EPR working group. So I think this goes along nicely with that as well.
Okay. Did I capture what you just mentioned, that those changes okay? Okay. All right. So this section, again, still talking about source reduction for product packaging under the impacts and benefits. There was a comment. Note that most of the manufacturers where the products are made are on the mainland and not Hawaii-based. Hawaii consumer base is exceedingly small compared to the mainland. States like California have exponentially large consumer base that can change the way packaging of goods is done. However, Hawaii does not have that luxury. If there are too many restrictions, manufacturers may no longer provide products to Hawaii. We must also keep in mind that manufacturers and retailers want to be sure items that are purchased are damage-free when the consumer receives them. Implementing EPR programs can significantly increase the cost of producers, which may ultimately be passed on to consumers. And remember, anytime retail is touched, the cost is ultimately passed on to the consumer, hiking prices even higher on products and goods, and therefore keeping Hawaii one of the most expensive places to live. Some states who reduce packaging are seeing an increase in damaged goods, albeit electronics, food, home goods. Fortunately, it will ultimately be the consumer who pays the price. Unfortunately, who pays the price as prices will continue to increase. So a lot of commentary there for impacts and benefits. Do you think this is a spot to add a little bit about potential impacts, or again, is this better represented in the letter that we saw previously?
Nicole's hand is up.
Well,
Yeah, I think if we are, everything would just need to be cited if we're including those. But I think I agree that it fits nicely into a letter.
yeah. I think because we don't have references to this, that it's probably better to just keep it in the letter. Is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
Okay. Then we could move along here. All right, and this was in response to the confusion of how many members voted yes for the recommendations, but I think I added a little previous text, so that's addressed previously. All right, and some minor text change here. Recommendation to cite this, which will add the citation and link. And this was scratched, this part of the section. And then this last bullet was updated to individuals without commercial provisions. Next page, right above figure 9, just struck the words "and diverting," so now it's just most preferred option for preventing wasted food. And then there was a suggestion for a title change to increase businesses' food reuse and organics recycling, since most of the chapter talks about businesses of a certain size. Okay, this comment here is under impacts and benefits. And the sentence reads, while recycling is less preferred than source reduction methods, the source reduction working group recognizes that not all food is edible for human or animal consumption. The comment is, need to fix this to clarify recycling is not source reduction. So it says while recycling is less preferred than source reduction. Was that just
Maybe that was my comment, and maybe that was not correct. I think I maybe misread this, so sorry. Please disregard. I think I read it as like while recycling is a less preferred source reduction method, something like that. Yeah, sorry about that.
clarifying? All right, now that brings us to the implementation summary table. Again, I will update all of the action titles that are under each one so that they match. In the titles from the text that we discussed, but there are a number of other comments here. So we've got many requests to delete DOH, and that again is probably just for the agencies since it's multiple agencies. Lene, is that correct?
Well, I don't think you want to limit it to just DOH, right?
Yeah. And then there was a request to add the resilience office under this line, adopt diversion regulation or deconstruction ordinance as a partner. Trying to find what each of these are. Okay, so this one here under owners for the adopt a diversion ordinance. The request was please edit to read city and state. Under this one, it says, please delete DOH will not commit to any milestones or dates, so you have our own plans and programs in place. So this one is talking about the streamlining the permitting process. So DOH, first of all, would you like it removed?
Oh, okay. No, we can leave that as ongoing. And then the one that says 2024 and ongoing is ongoing.
Okay, so just take out 2024 and just leave it as ongoing.
Yeah.
But leave the other text.
Yeah, and then if we can just clarify that we're only continuing to streamline the solid waste permitting process, we're not gonna be responsible for other permits. Okay.
Can we volunteer you for that though?
Are the owners, do you want to leave DOH or is this another one?
Well, if it was intent, that's why we had the question, what permits is this for?
Yeah.
Because if it's for all permits, we don't have control over all permits. And so, that's the thing, if it's all permits, then we would say city and state, right? City, state or federal, depending on what it is. And then you can make it broader than just, but right now, the text is all limited to one. So, it depends on what the intent is. Is it just one or all? So if we're gonna go with, that's kind of where we were when we were discussing it earlier.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
So if the intent is to be broader, then I would say city, state, federal, depending on what the issue is. And then you have to make the other one broad.
Right, so let's not broad. We'll just leave it as DOH.
Okay. And then we narrow it to streamlining solid waste permitting process.
Right.
And then remove the reuse on the action time.
Okay. All right. Then that brings us down to educate and involve stakeholders. And again, added the resilience office to that one. And then this was a request for under the PV panels, educate owners about PV panel waste, to change that to city and state agencies. And then same thing here, the next one underneath it, for considered establishing a statewide stewardship program. And all right, jump to. And here, change DOH to city and state agencies. And
So
here,
I have a question, just looking at this, like EPR was not an action that we recommended in the working group. So I'm just wondering why it's listed as an action here.
so
Oh, this is the PV. Never mind. Sorry.
this is all of the actions. It's just in the summary table. Yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
Okay. Change this one also. And then I think the rest of the changes were just adding resilience office and then changing the wording. So again, I'll go back to the main text to make sure what we discussed and decided on is reflected here as well.
I had a maybe potential, wait, scroll up. Wait, where was the reusable? I was thinking maybe we should try to incorporate Hawaii Convention Center and Blaisdell in that, because I know when you're signing up for doing large events, they sometimes offer like green programs like that you can either pay towards to make your event carbon neutral.
Okay.
But I wonder if it could become like a program through them to offer the reusable serviceware.
Okay, so that one is the action here. No.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. So for a partner, sorry, could you say that again? Who?
Hawaii Convention Center.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe Blaisdell.
Could you say, I'm sorry, that I couldn't hear you.
I wonder if maybe you could include Blaisdell there too. I'm just trying to think of like places where they do large events that you could.
Yeah,
like,
and just HTA for any big tourism event kind of thing.
yeah.
Could you put that in the chat?
Yes.
I think she said Hawaii Tourism Authority.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's not an acronym. Please do. All right. So then we added the resilience office to this one as well, changed out resilience office from this one and added DOH. And I think that represents the changes to that table. If I missed any that people are aware of, please let me know.
Sometimes donations. Not sure if we could, how we would do that.
How DOH would do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we could just put it to be determined to the owner. I don't know. Who else?
Well, it could just be city and state. There,
Yeah. I mean, you can do that through education, lots of ways, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow, okay, we got down to next steps, references. I don't think there was any other comments. And with that. So I know there was a couple comments in the chat, so we can circle back up to that. And I did not see any comments to any of the appendix materials, so I'm gonna assume there's no comments to that. The only things that will change are Appendix G, and those were the personal statements or testimony letters. And we're going to include the ones that we've received so far. But I know that people were busy. I'm not sure if anyone was hoping to still include a letter that has not been able to, but if that is the case, perhaps the group could come up with an option for allowing you to submit it within a week's time, and then that would be included in the report. Is there any interest for opening that up and allowing folks that have not had a chance to put together a letter, maybe put one together in the next week?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
You would be interested in that, Quinn?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, because if someone missed it and just didn't
Right.
have time, but if they're rather not, I know, is there anyone in that boat?
I mean, we could leave it open and say that if you wanted to submit a letter within a week, then if that's okay with the working group, then we could do that. Is anyone opposed to that? So speaking of the last working group letter that I didn't read yet, brings us to the reuse Hawaii one. And as a member of the city and county source production working group, it is both a privilege and an honor to have contributed to the collaborative effort in addressing our community's pressing waste management challenges. For the impending closures of landfills within the next 4 years and the continuous rise in waste generation, our collective responsibility to foster a circular economy has never been more crucial. With the guidance of Jacobs, our working group has diligently invested time and effort into formulating proactive solutions to tackle this issue head on. Through extensive research, discussions, and brainstorming sessions, we have identified key areas where targeted interventions can make a significant difference in reducing waste and promoting sustainability across our city and county. The transition to a circular economy requires a multifaceted approach that encompasses waste reduction, reuse, recycling, and innovation in resource management. By implementing comprehensive strategies and fostering partnerships with stakeholders in both the public and private sectors, we can pave the way toward a more sustainable future for generations to come. Despite the challenges ahead, I remain optimistic about the opportunities that lie within our grasp. With determination, dedication, and collective action, we can overcome obstacles and chart a course toward a more resilient and environmentally responsible community. As we move forward, I extend my commitment to supporting initiatives that promote source reduction and advance the principles of the circular economy. whether through advocacy, education, or hands-on involvement, please consider me and my team at Reuse Hawaii your greatest ally. Sorry, I'm getting very tongue-tied. But thank you for the letter, Quinn, very nice. And so those, I think we now heard the 3 letters that we received. If for some reason a letter skipped by me that I missed, please do let me know, but we will for sure include those 3 in the sheet. Right. Well, then I will bring the slides back up because I think that brings us to our next agenda item. Emily.
Could we just circle back to Quinn's comment?
Oh, thank you. So the comment was adopt, not explore. All right, back to the C&D section. Okay. So 5.2.1, original title was adopt a diversion regulation and or deconstruction ordinance. And then we talked about changing the title to consider a diversion or deconstruction ordinance or statute. So I think the problem was that we weren't sure exactly the mechanism that would be utilized. And that's why there was a suggestion potentially for the word consider. The previous title was a little bit more affirmative action, is to actually just decide on adopting something.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it leaves room for whatever that is, regulation and or deconstruction ordinance. And sorry to backtrack, I just thought about it more, and
Yeah.
I think we, you know, in general, this great document is as much teeth as it has, the better. And I just, you know, I just think it's a important one. I'm also going to meet with Chair Waters pretty soon, and if it's okay with everyone, I wanted to let him know about that piece because he was interested in helping shepherd a city and county process to set that up. And I already had his team doing research on what other cities were doing and everything. So
your recommendation, Quinn, is to leave it as adopt a diversion regulation and or deconstruction ordinance.
yes, please.
Is anyone opposed to that?
That sounds good to me.
Okay. Okay. So back to the slides, then was that the only other comment, Emily, that we needed to be kept before we move on? Okay. All right, so that actually brings us to our next agenda item, which is both information and an action. It's related to the approval of the final report. So, first of all, did anyone sign up to make a public comment on approval of this report? How about online? Eunice, was there any of the public that are there in attendance that would like to make public comments about approval of the final report?
No members of the public.
Okay, so since there are no members of the public that wish to have public testimony, then we will not have any, and we will move on to actual discussing this with our source reduction working group members. So we just went through quite an extensive discussion about all of the different changes. We've all had an opportunity to review the draft report and submit your comments. And we've gone through each of those and come to some resolution on specific changes to make and or some specific little additional research that might be needed to add a little more context. So we will take all of that feedback, make all of those changes as discussed today and documented both in the recording and in our notes and also on the file. So if I would like to ask if there is someone that would like to make a motion to approve the final source reduction working group report with the changes as discussed today.
I move
Thank you.
that we vote on the approval of the final report that will include the revisions discussed today and include individual letters as discussed today.
There's someone to second that motion.
I'll second that motion. Lauren Zerble.
All right, all members in favor of approving the source reduction working group final report with the revisions discussed today and the individual letters as discussed today, say aye.
Aye.
Quinn's hand is up. Amy and Nicole.
Sorry, I was just registering my eye with the hand. Sorry about that.
Okay, sorry.
Yep, same.
So do we? Can you
So
make
eyes
consent?
on, eyes online are Quinn, Nicole, Lauren, and I thought there was one more. Amy, back.
So that's 4 online, and then in the room, we have Mr. Wolf, said Mike,
Yes, sorry.
so that's 5 people. That is a quorum. We have 5. So let the record show then we have 5 yes votes, and the final report will be approved with the changes as discussed today and the letters as discussed today. All right, so again, this is the final source reduction working group meeting. And following this meeting, our team is going to post the final meeting 4 notes and the slides from today. We'll also post the recording and the draft notes for meeting 5 and the final report as revised. And that will include the official proceedings of this working group. However, as discussed in the report, there's much work to continue. And our hope is that you all will help to continue moving these source reduction working group efforts forward. So we want to thank everyone for their participation in this working group. We also have some nice certificates that Brian is going to present to the group. For those that are not present, we'll have to find a way to get them to you. But again, I just want to thank all of you so much for all of your participation and the great time and energy that you put into this. And I've had a pleasure being a part of this. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
and then,
you.
again, oh, where do I stand?
You can
In my cap.
Can you all speak, Brian? Here, you can.
Oh.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, again, I'd also like to, add my appreciation to each and every one of you. I know you spent a lot of time on this and I'm especially looking at the final report, it's very detailed, and has a lot of input from all of the members. I appreciate and impressed with, the time and, that you put into this. I think it's gonna really make a difference and gives everything, a different for us to follow going forward. And so, thank you then for being in person and at all meetings. I'd also like to, add a special appreciation to Lindsay for being such a great moderator throughout the process, as well as, John and Emily from Jacobs for their, extensive support in running and running this group. Also like to recognize Julie Young, from our refugee division and planning branch for a lot of her coordination efforts in making this happen. So there's a lot of work that went on behind the scenes, a lot of work went during the meetings. And I think everything that all of your input does make a difference. And look forward to seeing how that affects the future going forward. Both for this county and how we interact with the statewide other counties. Thank you again.
Thank you. They're really nice certificates for those that can't see them yet, but you will get a chance to get to see them shortly.
Okay, so I have. Where do we have?
It's probably the last two.
Yeah, I know. Here, I'll just read them off as I open them. So to recognize all of the members, Haley Cook, Lenny, oh here, Lenny. Lenny. Thank you. Jessica Leona. Here, Michael Key. Thank you, Mike. And then we also have Alan Evans, Nicole Patterson, Amy Brinker, Gwen Vidal, Tina Yamaki, and Lauren Zerbel. Thank you, everybody.
Well, with that, we can officially adjourn meeting number 5. And again, thank you all so much. Mahalo, and see you all soon. Here.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Mahalo,
Take
guys.
care.